Good evening. I call to order this regular meeting of the Minnehaha County Planning Commission, and we'll begin with a few introductory comments. As a courtesy to everyone here tonight, please make sure that all cell phones have been silenced. Please note that tonight's Planning Commission meeting will be rebroadcast via CityLink and posted on the site www.minnehahacounty.gov site by viewing by the general public. Any final action taken on the conditional use permit applications tonight will take effect 5 working days following this meeting unless a written appeal to the Planning Commission's decision is filed in the Planning Commission office by Monday, May 4th, 2026 at 5 p.m. In the event of an appeal, the decision will be referred to the County Commission for a hearing on Tuesday, May 19th, 2026 at or after 9 a.m. The affected parties will be notified of the meeting date, and meetings of the County Commission are held in this same room. Any action taken on the zoning text amendment during the public hearing tonight is a recommendation that will be forwarded to the County Commission for another public hearing on Tuesday, May 26, 2026, at or after 9 a.m. Meetings of the County Commission are held in this same room. First on the agenda is public input. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? At this time, the Planning Commission will consider the consent agenda items any items on the consent agenda are perceived to be non-controversial and meet all of the requirements and the codes and regulations. The consent agenda will be acted on in one motion with no public hearing on the items unless a member of the public, the commission, or staff requests the item be removed from the consent agenda. Next, I'll read each item on the consent agenda and ask if there are any issues or comments from the Planning Commission or the audience or any member of the Planning Commission then would like to be heard on the item. Please raise your hand and the item will be moved to the regular agenda to allow you to address the Commission later in the meeting. Any items remaining on the consent agenda will be approved by the Planning Commission with the conditions recommended by staff. The first item on the consent agenda is approval of our minutes of the March 23rd, 2026 meeting. Number 2 is conditional use permit 26-14 to make one building eligibility available on the property legally described as Tract 10, Nelson's Addition, South Half, Section 26, Township 102 North, Range 48 West. That is in Brandon Township. The petitioner and property owner is Randy Nelson, and it's located at the intersection of North Chestnut Boulevard and East Redwood Boulevard. Is there anyone from the staff, the commission, or the audience wishes to be heard on this item? Item number 3 is conditional use permit 26-15 to allow an accessory dwelling unit on the property legally described as Tract 2A, Milky Addition on the west half, the southwest quarter, and Tract 2, Milky's Addition, the northwest quarter, the southwest quarter, Section 23, Township 101 North, Range 51 West. That is in Mall Lake Township. The petitioner and property owner is Glen Shade. It's located at 26564 464th Avenue. Anyone from the commission, staff, or audience wish to be heard on this item? Okay. So then item number 3 will be moved to the regular agenda.
Item number 3.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, item number 3. Number 4, conditional use permit 26-17 to transfer one building eligibility from the southeast quarter to lot 4, and there is an except outlot 1, end of exception, southeast quarter, all within Section 15, Township 102 North, Range 52 West. That is in Humboldt Township. The petitioner and property owner are the same, Stephen Leas, located approximately 1/2 mile southeast of Humboldt. Anyone from the commission, staff, or audience wish to be heard on this item? Did you raise your hand, sir? Okay, so we will remove number 4 to the regular agenda. Item number 5 is conditional use permit 26-18 to transfer one building eligibility from the northeast quarter, the southeast quarter, to the southwest quarter, to the southwest quarter. All within the southwest quarter, there is an exception of Larson's addition and the except H-1 and except track 2, end of exception. Section 10, Township 102 North, Range 50 West, that is in Benton Township. The petitioner and the property owner is Derry Benson, located approximately a half a mile southwest of Crooks. Anyone from the commission, staff, or audience wish to be heard on this item? Item number 6, it's a conditional use permit 26-19 to allow a dog boarding kennel on the property legally described as the south half, northwest quarter, section 36, Township 102 North, Range 51 West, that is in Hartford Township. Petitioner and property owner is Lucas Fisher. The location is 26140 465th Avenue. Anyone from the commission, staff, or audience wish to be heard on this item? Okay. Item number 6 will have to be removed to the regular. Item number 7, conditional use permit 26-20 to allow temporary fireworks sales on the property legally described as the north 453.2 feet, west 453.2 feet, west half, northwest quarter. There is an exception of track 1, Gulseth addition, and end of exception, section 1, Township 101 North, Range 48 West. That is in Split Rock Township. Petitioner is TJ Cameron. Property owner is Greg Matareski, located directly east of the 2501 East Aspen Boulevard. Anyone from the commission, staff, or audience wish to be heard on this item? Item number 8 is conditional use permit 26-21 to allow temporary fireworks sales on the property legally described as the southwest quarter. There is an exception of H-4 and H-5 and except track 1, Schaefer's addition, end of exception. And track 1, CAS, northeast quarter, southwest quarter, and Gardner's lots 2 and 3 and track 3, northwest quarter. There's another exception of Magnuson, lot 1, end of exception. Section 10 and part of southeast quarter, lying east of Highway 16. There's another exception of H-1 and H-2 and except tract 1, Schaefer's second edition. Section 9, all within Township 101 North, Range 48 West, that is in Split Rock Township. Petitioner is TJ Cameron, property owner is Dwayne Blakowski, located to the southeast of the East Madison Street and South Dakota Highway 11 intersection. Anyone from the commission, staff, or audience wish to be heard on this item? Commissioners?
Madam Chair, motion to approve item 1, 2, 5, 7, and 8 on the consent agenda.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. If your item has been approved, you're free to go. Move on to item number 3. Mason?
Good evening, Commissioners. Mason Steffen from the County Planning Office. So this is a conditional use permit request to allow an accessory dwelling unit on the property. It may be beneficial maybe to ask the neighbor what their concern is with this before I go through the entire staff report. But Staff does recommend approval of the proposed ADU with 8 conditions. But yeah, if the commission has any questions for me, otherwise maybe it'd be best served to ask what the concern is and direct
Okay.
for that, since it was on the consent agenda.
Any questions for him? I guess not at this time. Someone raised, would you like to step forward, state your name and address, please? State your concern.
My name is Carol Shade. I'm mainly a statement onto this.
Please tell your address, please.
Oh, sorry, 26564 464th Avenue, Hartford, South Dakota. I'm Glenn's wife. All right, the ADU will provide a comfortable, accessible living space for Glenn and I. We both have firsthand experience of placing our parents in assisted living and nursing facilities. Many hours of quantity time, not quality time. Travel and privacy have been very difficult disadvantages of that. The ADU offers the perfect middle ground, close but a separate setup. Our son, wife, and 2 grandchildren can maintain their independence and privacy while staying close enough to us to provide care and support when needed. We can play active roles like caring for grandchildren that we already do, but with many hours of travel. With them close by, this would be helpful for both them and us. We believe that this arrangement will strengthen family bonds, reduce the stress and expense of distance, caregiving, and ensure that we can age in place with dignity. The closeness allows daily check-ins, shared meals, and immediate assistance during emergencies, all while respecting everyone's personal space. We want to enjoy our golden years, feeling valued and securely connected to loved ones. I want to thank you for letting me have this opportunity. My name is Carol. Glenn, a thank you from Casey, Kendra, Sloan, and Murray, the Shade family. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience want to address this item? Commissioners?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve conditional use permit 26-15. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 4.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Item number 4 is a conditional use permit request, 2617. This is to transfer one building eligibility from the southeast of the southeast quarter to an existing platted lot called Lot 4 in the southeast quarter. And it's a relatively routine item. They're moving an eligibility from a quarter section to this platted lot that's shown in red. It is on the south side of Beaver Lake. It's about a half a mile south east of Humboldt. So part of the requirements would be that they would file a right to farm notice on the property before we issue a building permit for the new house. And the applicant should work with Humboldt Township prior to the issuance of any building permit to make sure that if they need to obtain an approach permit, that they get that from Humboldt. So those are the 2 conditions of approval. And I would be glad to answer any questions. The utilities are all there. As you're aware, we go over a number of criteria with a conditional use permit. We look at the enjoyment and the use of the property. We look at the effect of normal growth and development of the area, and is it suitable? And this would just be a single-family residence on this parcel of property. We look at the third item would be like utilities. It's on a gravel road, a township road. It is close to Humboldt. Potentially, they may need to work with Minnehaha Community Water to tap into an existing water system. We look at the off-street parking requirements. In this case, typically when you need 2 for a single-family residence, and with a driveway and attached garage, those are typically met. And then we look at our measures taken to control nuisance items like noise, dust, vibrations for uses that may cause those. Typically, a single-family residence does not cause those type of nuisances. And lastly, we look at the comprehensive plan, the health and safety and welfare of the population, and how does this fit into that? And typically, a single-family residence fits into what we would consider normal and normal health and safety issues for the public. Doesn't pose any real risks to the public to have a single-family residence there. So as I indicated, these transfers are relatively routine. I will stand by for any questions. I do have a couple pictures. I was out there. You can see the lake in the background. This is a picture of their sign. And then if you want to continue on with the pictures, this is looking back towards Humboldt. You can see the Minnehaha community water towers in the background there. And then this is the parcel of property that is available to be built on. There is one existing farmstead when I did my site visit, and it's to the southwest, and there's a picture of it. Otherwise, it's relatively not very many neighbors because of the lake. There's just one residence to the southwest. Be glad to answer any questions you have.
And-
The southeast of the southeast quarter, and I'm not sure if we have yeah. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for him? Thank you. Is the petitioner here? Please step forward and state your name and address, sir.
I'm Steve Elias. I live at 25850 457th Avenue in Humboldt.
Anyone have any questions for him? I guess not at this time. Thank you. There was someone in the audience that raised their hand that wanted to address this item. Please step forward and state your name and address.
Evening. I am Tom Lias. I live at 45755 259th Street. That's our farm across the road. We feel there's plenty of space out there. He could move that somewhere to the west or to the east of us. We are an active farm. We're busy. We have livestock. Of course, we have guardian dogs that work day and night because we have sheep. We plan on expanding the sheep quite a bit. Hopefully, we'll be here to apply for a new building someday. I get up early in the morning, 3:30 in the morning to start my chores. So I'll be up early, my wife finishes, and then she's out, we're out late, very at night, working all hours. So we are noisy, we can be loud. When we wean lambs, it's noisy. Our guardian dogs go out every night barking at the coyotes. And it could be all night. And they go around the farm every direction. They go all the way down to the lake, they go to the interstate, they go everywhere. So that's not the best situation. I just think there's enough room for him to move it up the road or to the east would be fine, but right across from the road from us is just not practical, I don't think. If you do approve it and somebody does move in and they want to start complaining about my noise, my dogs, my livestock, we will fight that to the end. We will not give up. So I think there's an ordinary, I don't think it is. We couldn't find one housing eligibility that was approved to be across from an active farm in Minnehaha County when we looked in the plat book. We couldn't find one. So I disagree that this is an ordinary move. Also, when it comes to utilities, there is a water line. Electricity, you'd be better off up to the west toward the water towers where there is a service right there by the water towers. There is no service anywhere near that property for underground wires or anything. I guess that's where I'm at. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to address this item? Step forward and state your name and address.
I'm Naomi Elias. I live at 45755 259th Street, so I'm directly across from the proposed housing eligibility move. Same as what Tom said, we run lots of sheep. We're busy. I guess the big thing would be to prevent problems in the future. You know, people, it's great to live there, you're out, and then you move there, and then you realize all the problems that come with living next to a farm. There's always those things that happen. I think it would be best for them, you know, if you could move it down the road, one way or the other. There's places, and that would be perfectly fine. I think that it would just be best for everyone that way. You know, you try to keep things so they wouldn't bother people, but, you know, there's always everything that comes with it. The dust, the noise, the smell, all of that. And I think that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, commissioners? Cindy?
I understand your concern. I live in the country, but it is his property. And if you don't want neighbors, you'd have to buy it across the road from him. I have the same, I can't say the same issue, but I live across the road and I'm hoping that somebody doesn't build across the road from me, but that could happen in the future because I don't own the land. So I can't vote against it because they need to know, I mean, you've made it very plain what they're in for if they build there. That's their decision. They know what's going to be coming to them, and if they decide they want to move across from sheep and dogs, then they decide they want to move across from sheep and dogs. The number one condition on there is that they have to sign a right to farm notice covenant. So they have to be well aware of what's going on. We have to talk.
Okay. Anyone else? Need a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and second to approve conditional use permit 26-17. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to number 6. Mason?
Good evening, Commissioners. Mason Steffen, from the Planning Office again. So as explained earlier in the meeting, this is a request to allow a dog boarding kennel on the subject property, which is 26140 465th Avenue. It is located approximately a mile and a half southeast of Hartford. In the narrative that was submitted by the petitioner, it does say that he would like the business to eventually include 3 44 feet by 80 feet buildings. However, they would like to start in a 40 by 44 foot building and then expand further as cash flow increases from the building, or from the business, excuse me. Staff is recommending that this request currently be limited to only one of the 44 feet by 80 feet buildings, which would allow the petitioner some room for expansion beyond their 40 feet by 44 feet building, but not beyond the one building. And then we are recommending a maximum of 15 animals, so that if the petitioner would like in the future, if that is what's approved by the Planning Commission, anything beyond the one building and 15 animals would require an amendment to this conditional use permit if approved. The submitted narrative also explains that the business will be open 7 days a week with drop-off times primarily being 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and pickup times primarily being 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. But those would be the primary times. There would be pickups and drop-offs outside of those. Again, limiting the operation to the one building and the animals will reduce the impact on the neighboring properties. And the building is located fairly far into the property. So The driveway has a half-mile long property into the site, as you can see here, to the house that sits about in this area. But the buildings will be about the site plan shows 3 buildings. Staff is recommending only the 1, but all 3 of the buildings are in this same general location, which is about 900 feet from the west property line, which would be this property line along 465th Avenue. The property is also located about 1.5 miles from a paved road, which would be to the north a half mile, and then 1 mile back to the east would be the nearest paved road. And so limiting the operation to the animals and the 1 building will limit the impact on the Gravel Township Road at this time. And then just to mention, as you can see here, there is this 1 neighbor across the across 465th Avenue, and then there is this farmstead here with the actual house being a little bit further up here. So those are the 2 nearest actual residences to the site, and those are really the only 2 residences within a 1/4 mile to a half mile of the property. So with conditional use permit criteria, we do look at 6 conditions. So number 1 is the effect upon the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for uses already permitted. So like I mentioned, there are the nearest dwellings across 465th Avenue, but the buildings will be approximately 950 feet into the property and set back about that far from the west property line. Also, the dogs are proposed to be indoors on the property, so you'll have indoor kennels, which will help reduce noise outside the buildings. And then the set pickup and drop-off times for most animals will also help reduce the traffic backing up on the property as well and reduce the impact to the neighboring property owners. 2, the effect upon the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding vacant property for uses predominant in the area. As you can probably see by this picture, most of the vacant land is used for agricultural land uses like farmland. So this property is mostly surrounded by crop fields, and therefore any residential development will be limited by the availability of building eligibilities. So there will be only limited residential development around this property for this foreseeable future. Number 3, that the utilities, access roads, drainage, and/or other necessary facilities are provided. As mentioned several times, the proposed operation will use the existing driveway approach off of 465th Avenue. And the petitioner will be required to extend any necessary services to the building, electricity, water, any potential sewer system. And the addition of a 44 feet by 80 feet building on a 40-acre agricultural property should minimally affect drainage in the area as well. Number 4, that the off-street parking and loading requirements are met. The drop-off times are at those couple hours in the morning, and the pickup times are those couple hours in the afternoon for the most part. Limiting the scope of the operation will also limit the needed parking for the operation at this time. And as mentioned, it's a 40-acre agricultural property, so since it's zoned agriculture, there is no need for hard surfacing of the parking areas, and this property is large enough to accommodate the parking needs for the operation at this point. Number 5, that the measures are taken to control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, vibration, and lighting, inclusive of lighted signs, so that none of these will constitute a nuisance. As mentioned before, the kennel is proposed to be indoor, I did talk to the petitioner about the building, and it sounds like there will be a heated, climate-controlled section in the middle, and then a lean-to addition on either side of that climate-controlled section that will still be enclosed, but won't have insulation on it. The dogs will be indoors in those kennels, but they won't be in the climate. The actual kennel area is not in the climate-controlled section of the building, and that was what was explained to me by the petitioner in a conversation about a week ago. But since they will be in the building, that will significantly reduce the potential of noise nuisances, even if it isn't in a climate-controlled portion of the building, and the large setbacks to the neighboring properties will also help limit noise spreading to the other properties. And then any new lighting on the building will need to be fully cut off and fully shielded to prevent light pollution. Number 6, that health, safety, and general welfare of the public and comprehensive plan. Given the proper supervision and care of animals, the kennel should not have a massive impact on the health and safety and general welfare of the public. The petitioners should be aware that they should properly dispose of animal waste and not let it accumulate outside the building. That would be one of the main issues with a kennel, would be an accumulation of animal waste from the operation. And the property is located technically within the transition area on the future land use map that was adopted recently in the Envision 2045 plan. But this property is more than likely to stay agricultural, and the surrounding area is more likely to stay agricultural for the foreseeable future until any municipal development, which will be a long way down the road. So with that, staff does recommend approval of conditional use permit 2619 with 10 conditions. And I'll just go through a couple site photos here quickly just to show you the property. So this is kind of hard to see on the site plan. It's a scan of a picture onto the PowerPoint. But you can see the arrow down to 3 buildings here. So as I mentioned earlier, the petitioner did propose 3 buildings, and staff is only recommending the 1. But there are 3 rectangles there. A little hard to see, but so this is at the west side of the driveway, looking back towards the west to the farmstead across the road, and then this is kind of looking to the northwest to the farmland there, and then looking directly north along 465th, and then back up the driveway to the east, so you can see there is a little bit of a hill, and then right in front of these trees would be where the building is, and I have a picture of that in a second. And then this is looking a little bit more to the southeast from the end of the driveway, and then looking directly south to that house along the road there to the southwest. So then this is a little bit further up the driveway. You can see a little bit further down here is where the house is, and then just off to the left here to the north is where the proposed building would be. And then this is looking back directly to the west along the driveway to that farmstead that I showed in a couple pictures before. And then a little bit closer up picture of the actual building site. So with that, I'll probably go back to the location map and ask if there are any questions for me.
Any questions for him? Guess not at this time. Is the petitioner here? Please step forward and state your name and address.
Lucas Fisher, 26140 465th Avenue, Hartford.
Anyone have any questions for him? Not at this time.
I raised my hand. So I had a...
Okay, go ahead. I thought,
Sorry.
go ahead.
2 things on the recommendations. The first one is it was recommended that the kennel be limited to a maximum of 15 dogs at one time. I interpret this that the whole building could only be allowed 15 dogs. I'm asking for the maximum of 15 dogs to be removed and ask for the maximum of 3 dogs per pen per kennel if the dogs weigh less than 30 pounds, and a maximum of 2 dogs per pen if the dog weighs under 60 pounds, and a limit of 1 dog per pen if the dog weighs over 60 pounds. The owner of the dog will know if the dogs need to be separated into different pens or whether they can share a pen. The pen itself is going to be about 5 feet by 5 feet. So I kind of want the limit to be on the size of the pen and the size of the dog instead of just a random number of 15. So I'm going to start out by building half of the building, which will have 12 pens in it. And if I'm limited to 15 dogs, there's a chance that 5 pens might have 3 dogs each in them and 7 pens sitting empty. I don't want to turn away customers because I've reached the max of 15 dogs and still have empty kennels for dogs to be allowed into. I also think that the business is going to be slow during the week, Monday through Thursday, and very busy on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. To make this cash flow, I think I need to be at my max on the weekends because that is where the main dogs come in, because people will be camping or fishing or traveling on the weekends. So to make a cash flow, I want to make sure I'm at my maximum capacity on the weekends. Then if I ever do decide, if it does cash flow, I will add on to the rest of the facility to make it the full 80 feet. It would have a total of 25 pens in the facility. So, I mean, I'd either have to amend the maximum of 15 dogs at a later point, or I would like to do it right now and just ask for more than 15 dogs. The second item was, it was recommended that the conditional use permit is granted to Lucas Fisher and is non-transferable to any future owner or lease of the subject property. I'm asking to remove the word non-transferable, or to reword it so that it can be transferred, the conditional use permit can be transferred. I'm asking this because someday I will retire, or I will lose my mental and physical health, and at some point I will die. Just because I'm dead, it doesn't mean that the business has to die with me. I would like the option to transfer this to a family member, and if a family member doesn't want it, I would like to transfer it to somebody who does want it. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mason, you want to address some of that? Oh, pardon me. You want to come back? One of the commissioners has a question for you.
You
Yes.
stated you're going to have 12 pens, so what are you thinking maximum dogs would be? If you're talking that you could have 3 dogs in one pen, that could be a whole lot of dogs if you had 3 in every single pen one time. So what are you thinking would be the maximum?
I think the average is going to be maybe 2 dogs a pen. Probably, I would say 3 dogs for 2 pens. For the max, it's going to be based on the size of the dog. If you got a really small dog, you can fit more dogs into the pen, but it's going to be up to the homeowner. So when I do this, I'll have a website for like, kind of like renting a camping spot. Owner will rent a pen, and then they can decide what they want for dogs in that pen. If they think they want 2 pens to house their dogs, they'd have to rent 2 pens. I don't know how to put an actual max on the dogs versus how many dogs you can have in the pen. I would say 2 dogs per pen on average would be 12 pens, 24 dogs for starters. And then if I wish to add on, if this cash flows and I add on to the rest of the facility, it would be 13 pens extra for a total of 25. So 50 dogs if you need a max number. And I'm just throwing a number out there as 2 pens, or 2 dogs a pen.
And I would think we'd probably just focus on this building, and if you add another building, it can always be a request.
Yes. I was hoping to just kind of do it now, but if that's what we have to do, then yes. I'd have to amend it and then come back and ask for more dogs.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions for him? Okay, thank you. Mason, can you address that other item that he was talking about? I think it was number 9.
The non-transferable, sure. So that is a condition we've had on other kennels. It's mostly just, to keep it from just going indefinitely, I guess, so that we are approving his operation, not just like he just mentioned about the it being run like a campsite where you have a website and you can rent however many pens for your dog. Well, if it's transferable to, let's say, his kid might operate it in a different way that may not be compatible with the conditions that's the purpose of the condition. If you want to reword it so that it says, yeah, I guess I don't know how you would reword it. I guess you'd probably just have to get rid of it, or I don't know what the best way to reword it.
Madam Chairman, I guess I'll just chime in here and say that it's not unusual, as Mason indicated, that we have these conditions in there. And it's because with these type of businesses like a daycare, a dog kennel, you really are, you are really working with the personality and the work ethic of that specific person. And if those change, we need to be able to assess those. It's not to say that you can't transfer them, it just would be an amendment to the conditional use permit, and we can change that condition to transfer it to a new person. But I think that it's in our benefit to have that new person show up, and you can ask them about their character, and, you know, we can make sure that there are no issues. That's all that I'm gonna say. And then the other thing is, I don't wanna, it would be difficult for us to enforce a condition based on size. So I would prefer that you do not have us weighing dogs. So just a number would be preferable than based on a weight of a dog.
I was going to mention, yeah.
Madam Chairman,
Go ahead, Cindy.
I was going to say something similar to what Scott said on the non-transferable. It doesn't mean that we wouldn't, if you wanted to sell it to your kid, that's fine. They just have to come back and we'd amend the ordinance. So it's not saying that you can't give it to somebody else, it's just saying that we would just have to go through the ordinance again, correct, Scott?
That's right.
Yeah, so it's not prohibiting you from doing it, it just means they have to come back to us and readdress it with us. It's, you know, if you're a great owner and you're putting your kid in, your kid's a great owner, it's not gonna be an issue. So it's just that
Leave it as it is.
it's a protection for us too. And then Mason, do you have any comments on the number of dogs? Because I mean, I'm not gonna approve 50 dogs.
Yeah, I guess what I would recommend, if staff is recommending the 15, I guess that would be our recommendation. If you were gonna do more than that, I wouldn't do more than the 24 that he mentioned, and that would require an amendment earlier than probably he would like, because as he mentioned, he wants to build the 40 by 44 feet with up to 24 dogs. That's what he could do in there, but then he could have another 25 in the other half of the building. So as staff, we're recommending that whole building, but he would be limited to 24 dogs. The thing from staff's perspective is, yeah, you don't want to approve so many dogs ahead of time before you know how the operator is going to operate. If he is approved for the 15 or 24 dogs, whatever the commission would like to do, and he can operate for 1.5 to 2 years with no issue, then maybe he can come back and get the additional dogs and show that he has been operating without issue with the neighbors. But that is our concern with the number of dogs being more than that. Yeah, and I think I did mention to the petitioner when I did talk to him that I don't think we've approved a limit more than 15 recently, but because we've approved one with 15 last year, I think one with 12 the year before that, a dog training that was limited to 8, but that's a much different type of operation because they had class sizes of 8, so they had a class in the morning, class in the evening. That was 8 dogs per class, so that's a little bit different than this. But
Madam Chair, another question.
Cindy, go ahead.
So is this particular building going to have 12 cages in it, or 12 pens in it, or is that like it keeps going? And if you can't answer it, then I'll ask the petitioner.
the site or the building plan that he showed me, the 40 by 44 feet building will have the 12 pens, and then the addition onto it would have another 13 pens for a total of 25 pens in the entire 40 by 80 building, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the one building. So the one building we're building today would have 12 beds, 12 kennels.
No, 25, because he's building the 40 by 44 feet, but we, as staff, we were recommending approval to allow him to do the one building expansion to the full. So if you read condition number 4, that the operation shall be limited to one of the 44 feet by 80 feet buildings. So the way that it was written as staff was that he was allowed to have to start out in the 40 by 40 feet building with the 15 dogs and then expand to the 40 by 80 building underneath this conditional use permit without amending it. But if you wanted to go above the 15 dogs, you would have to amend it. So right now, if you approve it with condition 4, he would be allowed to have up to 25 pens. If you want to amend that condition to reduce that building size down to the 12 pens in the 44 by 40 building, you could. I guess that's,
I think I'm thoroughly confused. So he's not putting 12 pens, he's putting 25 pens in the 44 by 80 building? Yes, but you're only going to operate 12 pens? Sorry, you're going to have to come up here because I'm asking too many questions, sorry. Because it's on TV, so then people are going to wonder who I'm talking to. The wall.
No, that's fine. So we're asking for the entire building, which would be 80 feet long.
Okay.
And it will have 25 pins in it.
Okay,
But until I know it's going to cash flow, I'm only going to build half of that facility. So it's only going to be 40 feet long with 12 pins in it. And that's where
Okay.
I'm starting.
correct.
Yes.
Okay, so that makes sense to me, Mason. So he's only going to have 12 pens under this current ordinance?
Well, we're asking for the
But
whole.
he can expand it, but he has to come back and have permission to add more room? No.
no,
No,
Okay.
just more dogs.
just more
Okay.
dogs.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I
Sorry.
understand now.
Okay, sorry.
And
Yes.
The way that I wrote the staff report was not based on this information. It was just based on having one building with a number of animals. And then if he wanted to expand beyond either of those, he would have to amend it. That was the intent of the staff report. But yeah, it was a little bit confusing once I learned the information from him of the number of pens, so.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I would like to add, when I mentioned the non-transferable, I thought never meant never.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm okay with that the way it is. If when something does happen, they could come in here and state their case to keep it going, my kid or family member. And so if we did want to only allow me the half a building of 12 pins, I would ask for 24 dogs. And then I'd have to come in and amend the rest of the building for an additional 13 pins, and then more dogs. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else want to address this item? Okay, commissioners? Oh, sorry, I didn't see you. Step forward, and state your name and address.
Tyler Fulkin, I live at 26149 465th Avenue, Hartford. Guess my concern is possible noise issues. Is there going to be soundproofing in the building? I'm the neighbor that lives closest to it. Is everything being completely enclosed, or will there be runs outside? Guess kind of looking for number 2, how many is going to be at the facility? With it being a business, is it going to be commercial? Is the area zoned for commercial? Or is it just going to stay currently as agriculture? And then traffic, 261st Avenue, the road to the north, that's already highly traveled with people traveling to bypass Hartford and that. I guess it's going to increase the traffic on 465th. My wife and kids, they like to go on walks, and we'll have to deal with, extra traffic in that, I guess. It's just concern that we have with it, I guess. Yes, yeah, that's my questions or concerns about it, I guess, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Dale Stosend. I live at 47424 279 Street in Worthing, but I own the farm ground that is directly south there. And I guess my concern, I have building eligibilities on this ground here. I actually have 6 eligibilities right there. And where I would build would be on that line because the rural water is right across at Tyler, who just talked. That's where rural water is. So I just bring rural water across the street and I can start building houses. And the noise was the main concern I had. I guess he's talking about a lean-to. Now, I don't know, is a lean-to enclosed? Growing up on the farm, all our lean-tos were 3 sides and it was open on one side. That's what a lean-to was. Now, if it's open on one side, that's not going to, control the barking or whatever you want to say. My concern is our main concern is noise, and I can see Tyler's concern living there already. And the commercial aspect, is the whole 40 going to be commercial then? Or is it just, it's zoned agricultural now, correct?
Madam Chairman, would you like me to answer that?
Please do that, Scott.
So the property will remain agriculture. It's currently zoned A1 agriculture, and a dog kennel is a conditional use within that district. So the zoning stays the same. We are considering granting a conditional use permit, which does not change the zoning.
Okay, on that 40 by 80 or whatever size.
No, the entire lot would stay.
Well, no, I mean,
A1.
that's what would, because, or no, it all stays, but it's agricultural with a special use.
With a conditional use permit.
Okay. Okay, I guess that was one of my concerns too. If it was all zoned commercial, well, I'm gonna put a body shop in here now and then I'm gonna, put an ice cream parlor or X, Y, Z, but, okay, my main concern is just noise. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else care to address this item? State your name and address.
Dean Morrison. We have 26336 465th Avenue. Got the 40 acres right next to him. A little concerned about the property line, how far back the building's going to be from the fence line. And we will be eventually putting a house there, and it wouldn't be too far from the kennel. So the resale of the 40 is going to drop a lot, I would think, just because of all them dogs. And I guess that was my biggest concern. So be it.
Thank you. Anyone else care to address this item? Petitioner, can you answer some of the questions? Please step forward again.
Yes, the lean-tos are also going to be all enclosed. There will be a vent for air to get in and out from the dogs, but the whole thing is going to be enclosed. Dogs are not going to be outside of the facility whatsoever. The bottom 4 feet of the entire facility is going to be made out of block, so the dogs cannot see any other dogs. The pens will be up to the ceiling, so there's no way the dog can get out. If barking is an issue, I could always insulate the lean-tos around the building. The neighbors have dogs that roam outside and they bark every night, but I don't mind it. That's all I got. Were there any other questions?
Not that I'm aware of. Go ahead.
Yes.
The distance from the property line?
Oh, yes, 20 feet south of the property line is what I'm looking for. And I'm hoping to put a shelter belt in there also. I could do a shelter belt around the whole property if I have to help noise and for people to see it. Anything else?
Any other questions?
All right,
Thank you. Okay, petitioners? Sir, you've already addressed this. Yep.
He said something new that I didn't know.
All right, you can step forward. I said you could step forward if you have another question.
Well, he said a shelter belt, but he's gonna build 20 foot off the lot line. How much soundproofing or how thick of trees do you get from me to you? The setback should be more than just 20 foot from on the north side, where Morrison owns, is what I'm saying.
Okay, anybody else care to address this item before I close the floor? You need to come up to the,
But the property line needs to be established before he can even build, right? So that needs to be squared up. I mean, before he can just plop a building down. I imagine he would, because I better be part owner of it. If he gets it in the wrong spot, that's one issue, I guess. But, all right, that's all I had to say. You heard me, right?
thank you. Okay, commissioners?
All right. Yeah, I know dog kennels are always very challenging when they come in here, it seems like. I know neighbors always are concerned about barking and all that. I guess I feel like he's got it enclosed. I feel like he's better than some of the other ones we've approved in the past, having it all enclosed. But I'm going to keep the recommendations the same for the 15 dogs, I guess, and all the other recommendations on there. I guess that's all I have. If you guys want to comment or.
Becky?
I would be inclined to go to 24 dogs, just because I know that lots of times people do bring 2 dogs, and they do like their 2 dogs to be in the kennel together. So I would be inclined to go 24 dogs. I guess I do have a question about requesting requesting some kind of trees, because if we want some trees to the north of where that building would be, now is the time for us to request that, so that there is some type of sound barrier. And usually, I know evergreens are more slow growing, but that would be, I'm not an expert on that. That would be something to be established with, how do we usually word that with the agronomist or the extension service? Is that what we usually?
Yeah, with the Minnehaha County Conservation District is
Yeah.
usually how we do it. Yeah.
I'm kind of inclined that I would put a requirement for a row of trees, at least directly north of where the buildings would be.
I would tend to agree with Commissioner Randall. I don't want to necessarily limit him to 12 or 15 dogs. I would like to see him be successful at this business, and if that means having a few more dogs when dogs are bigger or smaller, I guess I wouldn't want to be a burden and not have it be successful for him. So I would tend to agree with Commissioner Randall.
I'm going to also agree with Commissioner Randall, and I think a row of trees was actually my idea, of thought too, and I think they should not be just on the north side, but also on the, I don't know what side we were talking over here, must be the west side? Is it the west side? And I don't know if you can put 2 rows in there. I think that's up to, do we need to decide the number of rows, or is that going to be up to the Minnehaha County Conservation?
Well, I would say you decide tonight, because I would, the one speaker is correct. I mean, with a 20-foot setback to the north, you're only going to get one row of trees. But if you want 2 on the west side, you could indicate that now. 1 row along the north side of the building and 2 rows on the west side. Looks like there's some already on the east side.
Yep.
Or however many rows you want, 2 or 3.
Becky, thoughts on rows? Obviously, it's going to only be on one on the north side, and I think it should be evergreens. Any thoughts on the west side?
So you wanted that added on?
I'm
to
going to say
recommendation?
2. I'm just asking Becky.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I think there's enough room to put 2 rows to the west.
I would make an amendment. I think that's where we're going, isn't it? Make an amendment to add a number 11 that would add 1 row of evergreens on the north side and 2 rows on the west side of the buildings. And then an item, and then that would be my first amendment.
And then we need to vote on that amendment first. So I second that amendment.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that amendment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
The second one?
I would move to amend item number 2 to a maximum of 24 dogs.
I'd second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to do another amendment on number 2 from 15 dogs to 24. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Now the original. Oh, we have to have a motion on the whole thing.
Don't we have to have a motion to approve the whole thing now?
Yes. I move approval of conditional use permit 26-19 to allow a dog boarding kennel with the amendments as specified.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve conditional use permit 26-19 with the additional amendments. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, we're going to move on to the regular agenda. Number 9, conditional use permit 26-16 to exceed 2,000 square feet of industrial warehouse area, requesting 24,000 square feet on the property legally described as lots 1 and 2A, Block 3, Green Valley Edition, Northeast Quarter, Section 12, Township 102 North, Range 50 West, that is in Benton Township. Petitioners, Heartland Contracting LLC, property owner is New Direction Equipment Company Holdings LLC, located at 25728 Cottonwood Avenue. Kevin?
Good evening, I'm Kevin Hookman from the County Planning Department. As you just heard, this item is to, the applicant is requesting to double the size of an existing industrial building with a 12,000 square feet addition. So the total building will be 24,000 square feet. Conditional use permit is required for any building over 20,000 square feet. The petitioner did submit a brief narrative and detailed site plan to support this application. The site plan shows that the addition is essentially a continuation of the current shop to the north of its current footprint. During review of this permit, staff found that the current business is already permitted under a conditional use permit 1309 for retail sales, display, and manufacturing at the property. That was approved with 17 conditions. The staff also found that the property is not compliant with several of the conditions that were approved in 2013. So at this time, staff will be recommending denial of the permit. But just I'll go over a couple of the conditions that need to be addressed. The property owner should be also aware that now that we are aware of the permit conditions not being addressed, then no other building permit will be permitted prior to those being amended and corrected. So I'll take your attention to condition number 4. In the staff report, I listed all 17 conditions. And I'll just kind of go over some of them that are not fully complied with. Condition number 4 requires materials, supplies, and similar products to be placed behind a fence. and there's no fence that has been constructed on the property. Condition number 5 requires lights to be recessed, and I have parentheses cut off is the language we use more often today, and directed downward so it does not spill. The lights that are on the building are not cut off, so they are directed kind of outward. Conditions 9 and 10 are related to the fence. As it is shown on the original site plan, and it was not installed. Although I would also point out that the fence as depicted in the original site plan, and I'll get to it in the PowerPoint here later, may not be the most relevant item any longer. Many businesses in that industrial park do have other storage and do not necessarily have fence requirements. This property is storing mostly new equipment with maybe some kind of parts and things that are off to the side. And generally within the industrial park, the fence is not quite as necessary as what it probably was considered to be when it was originally approved. Condition number 12 requires hard surfacing for the driveways, parking lots, and loading and unloading areas. The property has 2 driveways. One of the driveway is hard surface with concrete, and then that also has the parking lot. But the second driveway is still gravel, and that leads up to the loading area. And even in the 2013 site plan that was approved, it does show that it was intended to be asphalt surfaced. So with that, I'll probably go through some of the pictures that I have. So this is the site here, and you can see the existing building layout. Since this roughly looks like what it was when I visited the site, there's some newer equipment on the east side here, and some parts things that are here, both new and used kind of parts mixed together on that north side. You can see here the gravel driveway pulling dust onto the road. This is the site plan that was submitted for this plan. The site plan shows the building just the northest on the left side of the screen here. Just shows the building essentially doubling in size to the north. The site plan also shows the gravel areas, parking areas, and loading areas, and display areas. Some photos of the site. This is from a short distance away. Up close, you can see the nice parking area and the pavement. Some of the things that are stored in the back, as well as the business there. And then this is that driveway that's on that north side there, north driveway. And then this is I pulled together the site plan from 2013, so you can see where that is, and I zoomed in on the building here, highlighting the asphalt area right here as shown on the site plan, which would be going up to that loading dock. So as I noted before, in general, a larger addition to this building would be compatible with the area. And the chosen type of business is compatible. And it's just staff would like some of these items to be addressed first before we can recommend approval. So as of right now, staff is recommending denial until these can be addressed. And I'm here for any questions, and we can open this up to discussion.
Any questions for him?
Madam
Becky?
Chair, if we deny it, does that prohibit his ability to come back in 2 months if he corrects the problems?
So a denial would restrict him from coming back for 6 months. So it would delay him some time. I suppose you could alternatively defer the item to a later date as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for him? Cindy?
A question about the fence. Kevin, did you say that the original plan probably had more fence than was necessary? And so one of the things that could be addressed would be to put less of a fence on there or not? I'm just was trying to make clarification.
Sure. And I guess we can bring up the photos here. you can see the site there. It is similar to other industrial properties in the neighborhood. There isn't really any neighboring residential use anywhere near except for across the interstate. So the fence requirement may have been there because it was on the site plan, but I don't necessarily see that as being a hard need for going forward.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
So if we, like Commissioner Randall said, deferred it, which I would want to talk to the owner, and then some of those issues could be addressed. Otherwise, they're going to have to wait 6 months. So,
Correct.
okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for him?
One more question.
Go ahead, Adam.
So you're talking paved, you need a hard surface from that north driveway, right, to the, that needs to be hard surface. Is that the only part of it then? That needs to be really hard surfaced?
Correct. The storage areas, the display areas are not required by our ordinance.
It's just
to-
from there to
so
that
it would
loading
just
dock
be-
then, basically?
Yep, the driveway up to the loading dock, so that way that anything going between that would have the hard surface.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Guess not at this time. Is the petitioner here? Please step forward and state your name and address.
My name's James Creer with Heartland Contracting. My address is 1707 East 57th Street North, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I guess outside of the hard surface approach, what, is that the only hard, fast item outside of, I mean, it sounded like the fence was a deal, but now isn't a deal. I need to know what to go back to the owners with.
All right, I guess the other item that needs to be addressed, and maybe I kind of skipped over it because the hard surfacing is one of the number one issues, but the requirement for the lighting has to be cut off. From this photo, you can even see that you can see the where the light is coming out and shining out. So either a different fixture or a visor to direct that light downward would work on this case.
Sir, would you like to step forward again? Are you aware of what he's talking about? Will you step forward?
Yeah, I mean,
You
I
aware of the
understand.
lighting too?
I understand about the lighting.
Okay.
That's simple.
Have-
So the lighting and the hard surfacing are the two issues? Okay? Good,
Any
thank
other
you.
questions?
I have a question for the
Mr. Smith?
petitioner.
Yeah.
So what would be your preference? If we deny it tonight, you can't do any, I mean, you'll have to fix those issues, but you have 6 months and you can't come back for 6 months, or we can defer it for several months and you can come back with these issues corrected and you wouldn't have to wait 6 months. We need to know
I would rather do that, yeah.
Defer it.
how many months do you think it will take you to get that hard surface done?
I have to talk to the owner. I mean, it's a Canadian-based company, so I would have to talk to the owners. I mean, if they're serious about doing a project, if they want to move forward with it, I think it could happen relatively quickly. I know some slow concrete guys. Make it happen.
Okay.
That it?
Okay.
2 months, I would say 2 months.
If we have to defer it again, we could defer it one more time if they're not quite done.
Yeah, I think 2 months, would that be reasonable for you to?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Fix the lighting and fix the driveways.
June
It-
29th.
Okay, and then it will also have to address the fence issue, so does that have to be on the next, when you come back here, that remove
Can
that
address
item?
it- We can address it at
In the
that
next 2 months?
29th.
Okay.
Okay. So does the fencing, just to be clear, does the fencing need to be done then too? Or are we talking still just the lights and the hard surfacing?
If you come in with a request to eliminate that condition, we can address it. So if you want to get rid of the fence,
Okay.
either put the fence up,
Okay.
or tell us you don't want to put it up, one or the other, and we'll deal with it at on the June meeting.
Either way, just clarification was needed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Okay, commissioners?
I'd make a motion to defer till, what was the date?
June 29th.
June 29th.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and second to defer the conditional use permit 26-16 to the June 29th, 2026 meeting. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Number 10, zoning text amendment to amend 1990 revised zoning ordinance for Minnehaha County to update Article 23-00 building permits. Mason?
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. Mason Steffen from the County Planning Office again. So I did mention this earlier. This is similar to the zoning text amendment in the Sioux Falls joint jurisdictional area that we had earlier tonight, but since we're in a different video for the people listening, I'll go through it again just relatively quickly. So Article 23 of the county zoning ordinance is titled Building Permits, and it relates to building permits and other type of permits requests, such as zoning permits that are related to the zoning ordinance. Staff is suggesting to change the title of this article to other permits instead of building permits, because as mentioned, there are other types of permits within the article than just building permits. And then also, if right now there's only building permits and zoning permits, but in theory, if we have the need to add different zoning or different permit types in the future, having the article titled Other Permits would be a better and more complete name. Again, as mentioned earlier, currently the building code is inconsistent with the zoning code on how we issue permits. So in the county zoning ordinance, it currently says that a permit expires every 180 days, and the international building codes that were adopted in 2021 by the county say a permit expires every 365 days from the date of issuance. So changing the language in the zoning ordinance to match and point to the international building code would allow for whenever the international building code changes, it remains consistent with the zoning ordinance, and the zoning ordinance doesn't have to be amended every time that those are changed. And then along with that, there's several language clarifications. There are no changing of article titles or anything. It's just changing the name of the article to Other Permits, and then the section titles are all remaining the same. And then the getting rid of a section at the very end. 2308 was removed. But yeah, if there are any questions on this text amendment, otherwise staff is recommending approval of zoning text amendment 2607 to amend Article 23 of the 1990 revised Minnehaha County zoning ordinance.
Any questions for him? Okay. Need a motion?
It's a public hearing. so
Oh,
you
yeah.
need to
Anyone
ask-
from the audience care to address this item? Okay, Commissioners? Sorry.
Make a motion to approve.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to approve zoning text amendment 26-07. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. Any old business?
No,
New business?
yes.
Scott?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just to serve a background, you're all very familiar with data centers and the fact that City of Sioux Falls, other jurisdictions have been struggling with that. As our zoning ordinance now stands, we don't address anywhere in our zoning ordinance data centers. And it's likely that we'll be faced with this in the future. So I will be preparing eventually an ordinance amendment to address that. But prior to that being done, I would like to provide you some education, and we're going to have just a sort of a discussion tonight. And I have asked a speaker to come, Scott Sandel, and I'll introduce him now, to give us some information on his experience with data centers and technology and things that we may want to consider when we're crafting our ordinance. So as an introduction, Scott Sandel is a lifelong South Dakota resident. He grew up near, he has stumped me, Howes, which is by faith. I never heard of it. I lived in Rapid City for 10 years. So anyway, most interestingly, you hardly hear this anymore, but he went to a country school, so you don't see that very often anymore, a 2-room school, a K-8 school. So that is very interesting, and he has 20 years of experience in the data center infrastructure field. He is currently a vice president of client services for Sunbird Software. He's been involved with construction of data centers, so I think he's going to be a very good resource for us to listen to, and you certainly can have questions. I did happen to see Scott on TV. Well, I think there was a news article on Kello maybe about the work that he's done in Lennox. He has created a digital age club for this Lennox High School, where they're talking about technology and how it is relevant and how it's going to play a role in our society. So please welcome Scott to the podium, and he has a presentation, and like I indicated, you can ask him questions and he'll let you know he'll prompt you for questions if you have any. But keep this in mind that we will be gathering information on how we are going to craft our ordinance that deals with data centers. So thank you, Scott. You can take over.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I'll go through a presentation, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions or go through any kind of topics. I'll go through a background of how I got into data centers and where I'm at with the facilities in general around the world. It goes back to, I have deep agriculture background, as he mentioned, two-room country school. I grew up with a family of 7 out by faith. We all graduated from there. About 2008, 9, I had an opportunity to either buy Stockman's Livestock in Yankton or go do something else. And I opted to go do something else, which turned out to be the Yankton Data Center that's been in Yankton since 2009. It's now part of the Midco operations. And probably thank goodness that I didn't buy Stockman's, because Greg Reichen does a wonderful job with that facility there. So all credits to him. So the decks that I'll go through for you, and you can have this deck. We'll send it out in the PDF form so you can go through it. But it really just is, as Scott mentioned, I live in Lennox, and I've lived there now, 12, 15, 14 years. I've been on the school board for 9 years and served there. So I appreciate your service here, and know that it's, when you bring up a topic like this that maybe isn't a hot topic, sometimes it's not as exciting, right? We drive through all those hot topics on a daily basis. And so feel free to ask any questions. So I boiled this down to a high school level. We did start a digital age club in Lennox with the idea of, what does that even mean? What is the digital infrastructure? But it turned out to be, what is even infrastructure? To where we've had the kids tour SDN Data Center. They went to Seam Destruction. We had Nate Vanderplatt come in from the city administration, is the city administrator of Lennox, to come in and talk about how water even gets to Lennox and where it goes through the wastewater treatment plant that we have there, and how that's managed and utilized to a level where the kids really want to go see it, right? They want to go see this plant as to all the technology that's required to keep that moving away from your house so that it doesn't back up, because if it backs up, we all know what happens, right? So that kind of curiosity and interest all the way to how to start a business. But to bring it down, to bring digital infrastructure down to a measurable or a relatable level. So what you have on the slide here is, if we go back to the 90s, so I actually started my quote-unquote data center career at Home Federal Bank downtown in Sioux Falls here in 1993, where I would come in as a night operator, and I worked as to take cold, which was when we put in a mainframe. If anybody remembers the old green bar paper in a bank, it was to put computer output to laser disk. That was cold. So that was the first kind of data center operations, if you will, that I participated back in the 90s in advance. So to bring it to our age and the kids' age, what you're seeing on the screen here, if you remember back to the Gateway days, Gateway was awesome. Everybody had a cow box back in the days. That was your typical type of computer. Back in the day, and we still probably have those to your laptops in front of you, to now, if you fast forward, you have on the right-hand side of those is your gaming PCs. And so that's really the distinction you want to think about when we're talking about the traditional data centers. I know you guys have a few of those here in Minnehaha County already, to to what is now being more controversial, which is the AI data centers. And it can be boiled down into these pictures, which is you have just your standard computer, or you have a gaming computer, which you can see in there has hoses, which are liquid cooled to keep that gaming PC operational. Otherwise, it will overheat and crash, right? So you can boil everything down in the data center environment to those kind of basic components, okay? Any questions so far? So then in the data center world, all we do is we simply take the same mentality, we shove it into what we call servers. Servers are no different than your PC or your laptop. They're just more industry focused. And we rack those into racks, and then we have multiple racks put together. And that over the years has been what's been known as the cloud, right? When we upload things to the cloud or we store this video that we're recording in the cloud, it's going up to some data center that has basic compute like that, right? We go on to the next one. So then we take those racks of computers, we shove them into rows, we start to contain the hot aisle or the cold aisle. So you can see in this picture right down the middle, that would be considered a cold aisle. That's where cold air is going to blow under the floor and come up and try to cool the equipment. And as we get towards AI equipment, there's just not enough PSI that you can push across the motherboard or across those processors to cool that equipment. You have to go to liquid. And so that's where we start getting into those newer, more dense designs. Again, just moving. So now this starts to get into data centers that I've been in over the years, just the size of them. So you go from one rack to a couple rows to really long rows to really big buildings, right? So that gets us into really the difference between just a basic data center or modular data centers. On the left-hand side there, my left, yeah, your left, bottom corner is the kind of modular type data centers that can just kind of pop up, to the one in the middle there, that's the one up in Ellendale, that gets a lot of attention, to just a full-blown campus. And I always show the little picture of the dude up there in the corner because that's exactly how I started, was just in a little room downtown, right? To the bottom right corner where you have companies like Meta who are literally just popping data centers up in big buildings that are nothing different than chicken coops. And so they're putting up big plastic buildings because they're trying to race to compute power. Right? So the job of a data center, I won't go and read this through for you all, but because again, I'll pass these slides out, but it really is just the central processing place where we store a lot of information and we provide compute to whatever that compute might be. Could be banking, could be healthcare, could be schools, could be government entities, and the list goes on, right? To all the way up to AI. So for our high school project, of course I had to go to ChatGPT and just say, hey, give me a breakdown of who uses data centers and why they exist. And that's what that put together for me in that basic prompt was, it's anything from your gaming to your Netflix to agriculture. When we get into our GPS coordinates of how we go from end to end on a field, or there's new technology, what's a see and spray, how that's delivered, that all runs back through a data center of some sort in order to process it. Example last week was kind of fun because we had SDN come in, then we went and took a tour of the data center, and in that original conversation with SDN being in front of the students, we talked about what would happen if we, the school board, decided not to live stream a football game. Do you imagine the backlash of what would happen? And that has to go through the fiber optics, which goes through the data center, which is SDN's data center, and then out to the public. Well, lo and behold, we had prom, and we didn't broadcast it, and somebody took to Facebook because we didn't live stream it. That's the digital age that we live in today. So that's the kind of the demand of data centers in general. So some types of data centers you're going to hear about as you probably go where people come in and start looking for where to place facilities. The hyperscalers, the ones that are getting the most attention, and that's going to be your Meta, your AWS, it's going to be CoreWeave, it's going to be a lot of those entities. The hyperscalers, I classify those in anything around 100 megawatt campus and 75 kW per cabinet. And that'll get important as we get into the cooling technologies that are needed. But again, that goes back to that very basic of that single, like I say, computer, to like laptop versus the gaming system, right? The density of those. So I break it down in those two elements very critically. And then you have your Bitcoin mining that happens all over the place. And then you have your just traditional data centers. And that's actually the data center I built in Yankton in late 2000s. That one was a 1 megawatt, 5,000 square foot facility. And it was a co-location for a lot of entities here in Sioux Falls that wanted to co-locate. So if you have your main data center, maybe in your operations, whether it's healthcare or banking or whatever, the idea is you have redundancy somewhere else, just in case. If this building would go away, I have still operations somewhere else. That's the idea of a co-location, why there's so many in multiple places. So that's how I start to break down as a traditional or a co-location is going to be measured in kW or kilowatts size to megawatt size. And then the hyperscalers are going to get to that 100 megawatt campus and bigger. And I won't bore you, you'll go through this. This is just the components for you to see of what goes into building a data center. So from utility, all the gen sets, all the UPS, the uninterrupted power supplies, battery packs, if you will, that clean the power and deliver the power to computers in order for them to operate at their most efficient level. Just to give you a scale of when we start talking about data center power in context, right? A 1.5 megawatt facility is about 1,000 homes. A 40 megawatt is about like Harvard University. A 100 megawatt facility, right, is that's about that mid-size. That's where I start talking about. And then you have the hyperscalers, the Stargate, the OpenAI, that are 5 gigawatts of power. Right? And so this industry has changed very rapidly from megawatts to gigawatts, or from millions to billions to trillions of dollars being spent on it. Okay? So again, I won't go through this one, just another one for your own reference as you look into it. This is how different data centers are sized in comparison to power per watt. But the next slide really gets into where this becomes important, because you could have a small 5,000 square foot data center that could have 10 megawatts of power to it and be filled with racks that are operating at that 80 kW kind of frame for high density GPU AI type equipment, right? As opposed to just traditional compute and storage. And that's going to require, that's where you get into liquid-based, liquid-to-chip type cooling in those facilities. And I was just at AFCOM, Data Center World last week, and 1 megawatt is real, but they're talking upwards of 10 to 20 megawatts per cabinet, kind of designs that are starting to come forth. And how to cool that and how to make those operate and where to place those is a true problem across the whole US and world. I've been in facilities all over the world. One of my favorite that I use as example is my wife and I about 9 years ago this year, were in, 4 years ago, 9 years ago, in the Maldives. And what took us to the Maldives, you're all familiar with the Maldives, right? If you're not familiar with the Maldive Islands, where everybody goes to vacation and has the clear blue water and water bungalows. It's like the dream destination for most honeymooners, all right? So in the Maldives is a strip of islands in the Indian Ocean. And on the island, the main island, is a data center. The reason for the data center there is to deliver content to vacationers. So we can't even go to a dream island and get away from our YouTube and Netflix and email and whatever else, right? So they have a data center on the main island and on the top of the Keys island stream just to serve customers coming there. That's where we live. But those are typical colo type facilities, edge, or what they're more known as. So it's not just a US thing that's happening. Again, I'll go on just deeper in cabinet densities to bring it all back together. When you look at traditional co-location or traditional racks, that's where you're getting in. So the GPU size, that's about 20 of those GPUs. So if you get next to a kid who's got a gaming machine and you look at it and how it's operating and the heat that's coming off of it, in a traditional 10 to 15K rack, that's about 20 of those GPUs. When you get to the high density, it's about 171 of those can put into there. And again, a rack is about 6 to 7 feet tall. It's about the size of your refrigerator at home. That's what we're talking about is one rack. Right? So it's not a lot of, it takes up a 2x2 tile, essentially, in the ceiling just drop to the floor. That's about the size of what we're talking about in terms of density. And so the chart in the upper right-hand corner, that's where we get into why is it the cooling technology that exists from water usage or glycol type systems, why do they exist? And that's where you get into the density of the cabinet. And there on the top is 3 kW, 5 kW, then you get up all the way up to the 200 plus kW, and what type of cooling technology exists to make that function. And the industry definitely knows, like I said, I was just at AVCOM, that we have to engineer water out of the data center. And so it's a matter of what new technologies can we use other than water usage in order to keep the equipment cool. What would that look like? All the way down to the chip and how the chip is designed in order to get what across it to keep it cool. So that's where technology is headed, and we're looking for college, typically engineering students, to do that kind of research and testing. Any questions so far? Okay, I'll go through some of the rest of it. I guess in the area I've become known as kind of that guy to go to that's non-controversial in terms of data centers, going back to what I talked about in 2008 through 2009. Then I went out and started working with customers to understand their efficiencies within their data center spaces that are in operation. So our software, what we go in and do is look at every watt that comes into the building. Does it go to a computer or does it go to something else? If it goes to something else, it's a waste of a watt, right? So we help identify that in the facilities with customers and then start to report on how much power to use, how much water to use, how much compute do you provide. In modern days, you're going to hear watts to tokens. So every time you use any of the AI tools like ChatGPT or Claude or any of that, you're going to hear about tokens. I need to buy tokens, or I'm out of tokens. And that really just is an equation of, at the data center, how many watts are being used to create those tokens. And that's what you're buying, right? So on the screen here, I just have an example of how, when we go into facilities, the measurement points that we're looking for. So on the left-hand side, there is a containment system that has a power strip. My wife used to sell these, and just recently, well, today is her first day out, decided to go grandma time and do some other stuff with the group that we have. But she used to sell power strips. That's what she did for 13 years, is support the sale of power strips that had all the intelligence on them. And that there's so much intelligence in there that you could turn an outlet on and off. You could also meter how much power consumption was going through that power outlet on that power strip. And then you could attach to it to have sensors in it. You could have temperature sensor, humidity sensor, water sensors, vibration, because sometimes where you place a data center, the seismic events that occur there, you have to track that, to access control into those racks, whatever it might be. So there's super intelligence just inside of a power strip that you may think of just like your white power strip, but these are like 30 amp, 60 amp, 100 amp type power strips that have all this intelligence in there. So we start measuring that point and bring that data in. And when you start listening to people looking for transparency, that's where it begins. That's where we can begin to say, hey, if you're looking at a zoning, I need to have transparency. Therefore, you could have this kind of measurement system that could give me your actual power consumption. So in Linux, what we're doing is we're saying, okay, we know that the community has X amount of power available. And therefore, if a data center would walk into town, you can't go over that allowance without bringing your own power. And therefore, we want to tell us, the community, on a monthly basis, what is your power consumption? It should be easily reportable, right? Same with water, same with noise, same with every other variable that we should ask for, right? That's where we're going to start. We can start setting zoning ordinances, and then we get into taxes and everything else. This goes into, once you take all those data points, these are some very common metrics that we can put into like a zoning ordinance to say, hey, on a monthly basis, you should be able to provide to us this type of information. Therefore, we can be transparent back to our constituents, right? This is where that give and take kind of start to begin. And again, I'll share this, you don't have to memorize, but these are the key data points that the data center industry knows and should be able to provide, right? And the last slide that I have here for you all is just the demand of data center. So the increasing power, So the dark blue line is really anything non-AI. So there's a demand for data centers that exist completely outside of the AI fold, and that's going to be just our pure consumption. You know, similar to like recording this meeting and hosting and keeping it somewhere so everybody can go back and look at it. We do the same on the school, we do the same in the city, we do it everywhere, right? We save it so people can go look later. Or the football game or the prom that I mentioned, right? They're all saved and you can go back and look at them later. So that dark blue line represents just the standard growth of traditional data centers at 16 plus, there's different variables out there, year over year growth for the next 5 to so years or beyond that. And then the line above that is where AI comes in and just steps on everything and says, hey, we need way more than anybody else can imagine, right? So that's what we're talking about. Just wanted to, that's all I've got for slides or any presentation. Any questions you have for me?
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Just a few questions.
Yeah.
Very good, thank you. First of all, thanks.
Yeah.
You go back to those big centers, like how many acres are they talking on that, you know, like those big, that's just kind of curious there, like how many acres were they talking, like those, like
Yeah.
that, you know?
There's data center campuses that are getting 2,000, 3,000 acres in size. Just the whole campus, they're buying all the land. And of course, on that land then is not just the data center facility, because then they're going to bring in their own substation, they're going to bring their own water treatment plant or moment. So there's more to the campus than just that. That's where you really get into the big players that are, most of those are in Texas or Virginia or some of those places. But yeah, they can get quite large in land mass. Smaller data centers like the SDN one, you know, they've got, I think, 60 acres out there or less and operate just fine.
So do they, like you said, they bring their own, they can produce their own electricity then? Or how do they do, where do they get the electricity then to supply all that campus and stuff then?
That's a great debate in general. So I attend a conference every year called YADA. YADA is held in Las Vegas, and the YADA conference is YADA bits of data. So as we as a society start to approach processing YADA bits of data, we need gigawatts of power. And where will that power come from, right? Where and how will they transfer? How will they meet, right? Because then you get to just power generation. Who should pay for that? Then it's transmission. How does it get to me if I create it? That's some of the nice things that we have in South Dakota is we already have safeguards with our utilities, and that's why we don't have any hyperscalers here really at all, zero in fact. But because our public utilities and the utility companies in the state already have grounds to say, hey, if you want to bring a 25, 50, 100 megawatt facility here, here's your cost to getting that power to you, right? And it's a take it or pay, right? Use it or don't, you still pay. You also pay for that infrastructure. So we already have that in this state. Other places didn't have that. And so it still, though, becomes a challenge of, okay, well, if we know that's demand, what is Congress and others doing to alleviate how power does get to these facilities? And how will we do that? And I know there's just talk, right, at the congressional level of, hey, we need to make it easier for data centers, but nobody really knows what that means, right? So we're fortunate, again, in South Dakota that we have some safeguards in place that have a data center. That's why we took on the thing in Linux, was basically to say, what do we have as a benchmark? And from that benchmark, what then if a company would come and ask to build a data center, do we know as citizens know where they need to start from bringing their own, right? So it's all in the public and open right away.
I guess one other question was the water usage on that, like liquid cool, like how do they do that then? I imagine like cooling an engine down and stuff like that, recirculating and all that, but I don't know, is that right or not? Or
Yeah, no, there's all kinds of technologies, right? So if you go back to just a general air conditioner, that's how everything kind of started. It's just your basic air conditioner, flooding a room full of air, trying to keep the equipment cool. And then as the racks get denser and denser and denser, then we have to start using some other form. And so modern days right now at the high density is a closed loop system using like a glycol mix within it. Okay. And so as one of the customer sessions I sat through last week, They were talking about a hyperscale that they have in Chicago, and they literally haul their water in because they need to purify it elsewhere to keep those systems charged. And so they clean it up and ionize it and other stuff that they need, and then haul it in. But they as an entity use less water in their hyperscale than the neighboring laundromat. Right, on general, but because they keep that water so purified and circulating within the system, and then they have the outside chill plant to keep things cooled down. But depending on where the ambient air is versus more desert-like climates is how the outside coolant can cool that loop down. And where you go with that loop, in the ground or outside or whatever, there's so many variations. I've got one customer in Switzerland where they go in the lake. They use lake water. They're right next to a very deep lake. And so they pull the water out at a certain temperature that goes through the whole campus, college campus, including the data center. Then they put it right back to the same plausible temperature that's necessary before they put it back in the lake. And they've been doing that for decades. So it's a mixture. I don't mean to kind of dodge the question.
No, I'm just
but it's
curious.
a whole mixture as to your head's right. You're thinking right, but it's just a mixture of what is, and that's why I say the 75 kW is important, because a 10 kW rack can be just air cooled. There can be very minimal water usage.
Most of the pictures you have show one level. There's a few that are multi-level.
Yes.
But is there any trend at all towards multi-level buildings to limit just sprawl over land?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's City of Santa Clara, one of those in California. Their mandate is 4 stories. If you build a data center, you have to go 4 stories. They don't allow 1 story just because of their space constraints that they have. So it's absolutely. You have 4 stories, or then you get into high-rise buildings as well. But yeah, there is a possibility to go up, scale up. And then it gets into weight. So because some of these racks, I heard last week, the heaviest rack to date is 11,000 pounds. Right, they're typical 2,000-ish or a few hundred pounds, starting to get up to the high density. But one of the integrators told me last week he landed an 11,000 pound rack and is still sitting on his dock because he's trying to figure out how to move it. But that's the weight. So then you have weight constraints that you have to measure. So when I work with customers, you're looking at power constraints, space constraints, weight constraints, cooling constraints, and then just who has access kind of stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Now, you do have a data center in Lennox, right?
We do not.
Oh, you
No,
not? Okay.
We do not.
Do you give me an idea of maybe, I know the sizes are all different for data centers.
Mm-hmm.
How many people do they actually employ?
Good question. So I've been working with a customer. There's a metric somewhere of like let's say 5 to 8 employees per 10 to 12 megawatts of power. So it's the density. But we're seeing in the AI type facilities where you need more employees simply because of the equipment's burning faster. I mean, just think of like your car. You just smash the gas and those things are revved up all the time. So there's more failures that need break fix scenarios. So it's that 5 to 6 in an actual facility type size of 10 megawatts. But then in the industry, it's recognized for that would be a data center technician who physically works in the building, right? So I always equate it kind of like to farms and ranches, right? A single ranch doesn't employ that many, but the system around it starts to create a lot of jobs. So the number, when you take a data center technician towards the rest of the auxiliary industries, is a 1 to 6 ratio. Okay? And those jobs can be anywhere, right? Those auxiliary jobs. And that's why I always tell people I've been very fortunate to be one of those companies here in South Dakota to have those jobs here. So I have a team of about 50 employees worldwide, of which 40 are here in Sioux Falls area. So we don't have that many data centers. We only have 1 customer we actually serve in this area. The rest of them are global, but I have 40 employees here working on data centers worldwide. So it's not necessarily how many technicians can you put in. It's kind of like asking a ranch, how many ranch hands do you need? It's all that auxiliary stuff that goes along to support that single ranch.
Any other questions for him?
I may have a question.
Go ahead.
So when we're talking about this being electricity is also another limiting factor. What about the possibility of like self-generating electricity? I've heard about like nuclear plants, mini nuclear plants. Is that something that is a feasible future?
A good question. So you're talking SMRs, which are small nuclear reactors, and that's absolutely something that the industry and others are looking at, is to where can we co-locate power and data centers together on SMRs or small nuclear reactors, and then who has it, who owns it, do you become a utility providers? Like, and that's another thing here in South Dakota. If I'm going to build a 10 megawatt generation plant, I now have to become a regulated utility, right? And so do I even want to do that if I'm a data center operator? So you wind up working in cahoots with each other to say, hey, I want to work with the utilities to build generation close to my proximity. And that's what a lot of players are looking at, but it varies.
But I've also heard that nuclear really poses an issue because that's federally regulated. And to get that through the process can be 10, 15, 20 years or longer to get the regulatory approval to build anything nuclear.
You're spot on, Scott. So it becomes, it's not a technical problem. It's more of a policy and like people problem, right? That's more of what, it's not a technical problem today. We know it can be done. So the short or the bridge between that right now is the race to natural gas. So when I built that data center in Yankton in 2008, I would have been deemed crazy to put it anywhere near a natural gas line. Today, we seek natural gas lines to rush to them to get the power from that natural gas line in gensets, right? So that's how the industry has changed over the years, and continues to evolve to changes. How do we get power located on site? And then what becomes the regulating body of how that is powered in the facility or powered back online? There's a ton of questions. That's why the YADA conference I love so much, is because that's globally addressing that problem.
So one question I have is, if when we start looking at regulating, is there any benefit to distinguishing between like Bitcoin and data center? Because I've heard Bitcoin, they can just throw up like basically like a shipping container, and that they can be really, really loud, but like a data center, you can sometimes reduce that noise. So is that something you've seen in the
Absolutely.
regulatory field where they will say Bitcoin we don't want, but a data center we would allow?
I haven't seen it in necessarily like government regulatory bodies. I've seen it in utilities, where utilities are like, oh, you're Bitcoin? No thanks. Right? So I've seen it regulated that way, not necessarily because what happens is Bitcoin miners can turn on and off so fast, they can sway, and they're not designed like a data center where they can have their own gensets and whatever else to pull themselves off, basically load shed. They're just put on the grid, and then they power up to a megawatt or 2 megawatts, and then they turn off. And so you have a utility grid going like this, and it just don't like this, right? So utilities themselves are regulating it simply by saying, hey, what are you? What is the design of that data center? Because if you're this, then we're interested. If you're that, we're probably not. Not to say they don't let them on, but that just seems to be what I've noticed locally in the industry.
So is there a lot of growth? Is the Bitcoin mining, is that growing, or is that sort of stabilized in your opinion? I mean, where is that at, do you think?
I don't pay much attention to it personally.
All right.
I have enough of the hyperscale and the AI factories in the traditional data centers that I don't pay a lot of attention to the Bitcoin miners.
Because I mean, that could be something you could be faced with too, from a land use issue, is someone wanting to do Bitcoin mining. And what do you say to them? I mean, we have to think about that. That's all.
Absolutely. You want to understand the different types of data centers because they matter in their design, right? And then the sound and how they're utilized and everything. Absolutely. If you start writing a zoning ordinance, you want to have, what are you? Are you a Bitcoin? Are you a hyperscale? Are you just an inference? Inference could be a 10 to 20 megawatt type of data center that has high density racks, but they're just inference locally, to just a traditional co-location facility. So you definitely want to understand, what are you, right? And I think we can do that. The other piece is just around taxes. How do you start to tax a data center for what its existence is? And there's other states and municipalities and county governments that are starting to define, hey, we're going to tax a special tax on data centers so we get to reap the rewards, right? And so I've heard of one where it's like whoever that primary governing body is taking 60% of the tax, and then 20% to state and 20% to economic development.
Yeah.
So they're writing different regs around that.
And that taxation issue is not something that this board would be working with. I mean, that would be a different county function, but
Sure.
not land use.
Yep. No, that all kind of goes in. That's usually the kind of the big four arguments is water, power, taxes, people. Any other questions? Or I'm always happy to come back and talk more. You can tell I can talk about this for all night, all day, continue on. My kids have put up with it for years, but happy to answer any questions or come back anytime or one-on-one as well. Please reach out to me.
This is purely informational.
Yeah.
For us to get started. as a-
I'm not asking for anything.
No, but we aren't really either. I think our guys are just trying to get a broad
Yeah.
view of what might be going on.
Get the thought process started. We're gonna be looking
That'd be sure. Do you have a question? No. Okay, I just want to make sure.
He found out I was talking about this tonight, so came over. to
Okay,
listen.
okay.
So, yeah.
Do you have any questions back
Yeah.
there? Okay,
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Come back
thank
anytime.
you.
No other business.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.